Hi, I'm Linda Saye. I am the Global Head of Content for RiseUp here at Money 2020. And I am joined today with Mary Ellen Iskenderian, who is the CEO and President of Women's World Banking. And I just had the pleasure of sitting in, Mary Ellen, with your session. And so pleased to see that kind of content on the main stage. So really great there. I have a couple questions for you. The first would be, what are the three key takeaways from your session?
Oh gosh, I haven't thought about it that way. But I do think that the idea that financial inclusion is very, very far along. We've made huge progress, but that there is still a gender gap and quite a significant gender gap in some cases in Southeast Asia is an important takeaway.
Right.
That technology is going to go a huge way to closing that gap. There was quite a bit of talk about the last mile issue, but that just putting a phone or an app in a woman's hand is not the sole solution. And then it's important to be thinking sort of a broad ecosystem. So it's not just about products. It's not just about financial service providers, but there's got to be a good regulatory and enabling environment in place in order for everybody to be able to move in concert.
Right. So that really kind of leads into the next question, which is, what is the right way to approach financial inclusion, especially in this region, because it is such a challenge?
Well, I think technology is going to be a big part of that picture. So that's why I was so pleased that the issue of inclusion and women's inclusion was a focus for Money 2020. But I think you've got regulators who are giving very serious attention to issues of universal identification. We see, that at the heart of so many issues related to inclusion. It's just much harder if you don't have the right documentation and the right form of ID to then be included in the formal sector. I think a realization that just opening an account is not sufficient and doesn't really count as inclusion, but being able to have access to payments, being able to have a safe place to save, which is actually a very compelling use case for women. Women, both in developed and in developing countries, buy more insurance than men and like that safety net aspect of having insurance. So having access to those products. And then if they are looking to take advantage of a commercial opportunity, being able to buy build their business through credit. So having that whole suite of products available to them, I think, is going to go a long way to achieving inclusion.
Right. And what technologies do you see as the most important for enabling that with these women?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. Certainly, the fact that some of the payments platforms now are developing savings products. Again, as I say, that's such an important element for women. So looking at existing platforms that they may be comfortable with, adapting those platforms to sort of behaviors that they're already comfortable with. We've seen a lot of success. Many women save in the group models, sort of traditional savings models. To the extent that you can adapt that technologically, you'll see a much easier take-up rate. I am concerned that some of the digital credit models are maybe a little too easy to borrow. You're starting to see creeping up of indebtedness or over-indebtedness through the digital model. So I think the other part of that technology is really going to need to be around credit scoring and really letting technology be at the service of allowing financial service providers to establish risk mitigation and risk appropriate lending criteria.
Right. I could see that being a huge problem, especially for ladies that are suddenly having easy access to finances and maybe not knowing how to manage it well. So that's really important.
Exactly.
What are your financial predictions for 2019? What do you see happening for financial services?
Well, I do think you're starting to see, where we have the most success when we go into a bank or a fintech or a payments provider. It's usually where they've recognized this is a population we haven't necessarily tapped before, and they have some sense that there may be differences in the way they need to serve men from the way they need to serve women. And so we're seeing, particularly in this region, the business case has really landed with a lot of companies. One of the things that I think we do, and it's turning out to be sort of an easy, no rocket science piece of work for us, is literally just taking a company's own data and having them look at it maybe in a way they hadn't previously. We did a piece of I referred to it in the plenary. We did a really interesting piece of work with a large bank in the region that was seeing a very quick turnover rate on new accounts. So about 18 months into an account life, they were seeing churn, and the company, the individuals were closing the account down. We took a deeper look at their data and saw that while the turnover rate was 60% amongst male small business owners that were opening accounts, it was 90% with women.
Wow.
And when we looked at the segment where the churn was highest, it was actually women who were selling quite significant amounts of product on e-commerce platforms. And they not only wanted the transaction account, which they were using with the bank, they wanted a whole range of other services. Frankly, the bank did not even know those were businesses. And so, I think there's a lot of opportunity here of just frankly, having financial service providers look at their data, gender disaggregate it, and identify opportunities that may be unique to women that they're just not yet seeing for men.
Wow. Yeah, to me, this is so interesting because, being on the Rise Up program and coming to Asia, learning the differences between the challenges here versus the United States, for example. I had no idea that financial inclusion was such a big issue here, but I've learned a lot. Do you think that's the number one reason for gender imbalance in corporations? How does it relate? Yeah.
I don't know if it's the number one, but as I said in the session, I think part of the reason it's really just captured my own personal imagination, and I have so much passion around the issue, is there's very little that you can do where you make really one change in a woman's life, in the way the household interacts, that can have as many benefits. You give a woman control over more of the household resource, and there's just loads of data on this.
Right. Everybody
in that household eats better. More of the children, both boys and girls, are in school for longer periods of time. The healthcare, again, both the men, the women, the children in that household, is better. There's just so many. The water and sanitation tends to be better. It just shifts the priorities and the way that the household spends its resources and looks at opportunities that come their way.
Right.
And so there are lots of other important things. Education is important. Healthcare is important, but the financial control can be just the little nudge that just pushes everything else in the right direction.
Right, and that's what I hear from the academy, actually. So giving them the financial freedom to open those doors and make career decisions to move ahead. They're not having to, balance, do I stay home and take care of the children? I can now afford the help I need to also go out there and be in a career. Well, this is fascinating. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you for all the work that you're doing with your organization. It's really fantastic.
Wonderful.
Thanks for being here at
Money
Money 2020.
Thanks so much for including us.
Yeah.